I mean by the metering gap. I was here on Tuesday for Energynomics,
Right.
and I mentioned it. Just after the last meeting of the ministerial whatever roundtable discussions where the ministers were doing their 1 year review of what they've done.
Yeah.
One of the things the Minister of Powers mentioned was the debt owed by ministries, departments, and agencies are now going to be metered as against just the estimated billing that was done. So, what does that mean? Many military facilities in Nigeria don't pay electricity bill. It is the purview of the federal government to pay for those bills.
Yeah.
Now, what does the federal government do? They don't pay based on metered reports. They pay based on estimated reports. So the minister now said what they've decided to do is they are going to meter all the barracks and the different military facilities all around the country, and whatever is the meter says they've consumed in that month is what the federal government will pay. So that brings accountability and it helps the value chain, because if power is supplied and the gap of and the money paid does not meet up to the power supply, there is a gap. Two is the issue of unmetered customers as well. So with the number of unmetered customers we have, which I told you is north of 6 million, there's that issue as well of us having so much estimated billing, which may not even be reading correctly as to what the consumer is actually consuming, So we still have that gap as well. Now, with all these gaps, it has been a problem for the distribution companies to fully function. If you notice this Abuja Disco, Just Disco, and which other Disco recently, I think in Badon, they were taken over by AMCON, by the banks, because of defaulting of loans. So why am I mentioning all this to you? It's for you to see there is a very huge gap when it comes to power generation, power distribution in the country.
So in fact that means and funnily enough now, based on what you've said, I've never heard of any time where federal government pays their bills. So where do we go from there? Because they've always been indebted, so to speak. I hope I'm not being too hard now. They've always been indebted, and they've been indebted to themselves. So we find that the situation has to do with federal government not doing their own part on this, because at least the discos are working, the TCN, they are ready to do their job. So the whole bulk of the problem now is federal government doing what they are supposed to do and not doing it.
True. And unfortunately, if they keep up with this system, it's just like when they took over the distribution companies. When they took over the distribution companies, they made it look like the discos were inefficient, but they forgot to mention they were owing the discos over 100 billion naira in debt. That 100 billion naira that they were owing, they were not able to even pay up to 20 billion, and they expect the discos to keep supplying them power.
And they expect the poor individuals.
That is the problem. You see, this is even. I was mentioning at the last Energynomics session that there are two possible reasons for the increase in the tariff. One is to accommodate the introduction of renewable energy. But the second thing that I'm also thinking is they want most metered customers to fill in this gap in the shortage in the system.
Exactly. So that's why there's a high increase in the tariff.
It's too high. It's too high. And we're the victims. The common Nigerians are the victims. Why are we the victims? Especially the metered ones. We are the victims because if you don't load your meter, you will not have light.
Exactly, my brother.
The federal government, who is owing billions of naira,
are using the line, and not paying,
and not loading meter, not paying. So who is at the receiving end of all this? So these are the these are the issues, you know.
Well, let's look at it now. The discos, they are like private companies who are supposed to make profits.
Yeah,
that's what they are.
True.
Now, they are making profit with facilities that are not their own.
Mm-hmm.
They are by right and virtue, they are expected to pay for those facilities that they are using.
Okay.
If I have to use boat to go somewhere, I'll pay for boat.
Mm-hmm.
Boat company will take their commission from the vehicle that is like on a franchise with boat. That's the system that is supposed to be. But right now, all monies go to the discos, and nothing is going to TCN, who are supposed to be there to ensuring that these facilities are in place, alongside the huge debts of the federal government power stations, NDAs and all of that, now weighing on the electricity whole subsector now. Is there any way anything could be done to ameliorate this situation? Because now the burden, like we did say initially, the burden is on you and I.
True.
Who are asking for an increase in our wages, and the federal government is saying no. They're giving us offering a paltry 60,000 naira that cannot buy a bag of rice to feed our families for the next 3, 4, 5 months. You understand? So where do we go from here?
Okay. Sorry, let me just make a small correction.
Right.
The distribution companies actually pay transmission for their services.
Okay.
But the issue we're having now is the distribution companies do not clear off their debt to the system. So I have a chart. While we are discussing, I'll be searching for it.
Right.
I have a chart where you would see the distribution companies payment performances, and you will find that in that chart, I think the highest was Ikeja distribution, about 71% payment clearing of their indebtedness to the system.
Okay. To TCN.
To TCN, and so when they get power and the whole money is billed to them, what they do is they take money from us, the customers, and they pay to the Bulk Electricity Trading Commission, MBET.
Yes, MBET.
They pay to MBET. So MBET now gives the transmission their dues, and then the dues that are supposed to go to the generation companies and the gas suppliers are also given to them. So when they pay, we saw that it was the best performing discos are Ikeja and Echo. Port Harcourt is even they surprised me. They were doing 44%. It's the kind of money they take from us. so it was quite surprising to see that they didn't do as much as Echo and the rest. So that issue is there, and just like you said, you pay for both, you expect that you will get all the services required.
Exactly.
Now, if we are paying for power, we are supposed to get the power. But if the government doesn't become sincere with how their interferences within the system is causing inefficiency, then we will not really be able to get this thing right. And let me even surprise you. All distribution companies have 60% ownership. The remaining 40% ownership is to the federal government.
And
so it is even in the interest of the federal government to make sure they allow these discos work and be efficient, so that the federal government can get their dividend at the end of the financial year of the disco.
And even not even pay their own, and I said that other people get their power that they pay for.
So when you think about it, it's like a cobweb of issues that you don't even know where, if you put your hand, you could scatter the whole thing. You know.
I'd like to come back to River State now.
Yeah.
I recall that one of our governors, we called him then the Golden Governor of River State. I'm talking of Sir Dr. Peter Odili.
Yeah.
You know, during his administration, he set up gas turbines in the state, and those gas turbines were supposed to also give power to ensuring that every nook and cranny of River State, has power. Now, if that is the case, it means that we are supplying, when River State is giving power, not getting the money for the power, yet supplying the power to some federal organizations that are not paying for that. So that means it's like we ventured into a game of loss, so to speak.
Yeah, true. And as far as we have that issue not being addressed, you see, I'm always very careful when it comes to talking about power in River State now, because the burden of solving this issue lies primarily with the governor, if we want to be honest.
Right.
Let me use the case I always use as an example. Batinaji has geometric power. It's a private firm that generates 188 megawatts of power. That 188 megawatts of power generation capacity is broken down into different power plants. One of the power plants is 45 megawatts. The other one is 60 megawatts. And then there are about 3 plants that now make up the 188 megawatts. Now, what he has done in Aba is he profiled Aba, did a profiling of the customers, of their demand, and then he's using his 45 megawatts now plant to give 100% electricity 24 hours in that place at a very high standard. Like I said, if rain falls, there's no issue with the lights. So we have this Transamadi power plant of 36 megawatts. If you go to Omok, we have 264 megawatt gas plant.
Imagine that.
If you go to
Ogoni,
close to Ogoni, Afam Power Station, there are 3 power plants. One of them is 360 megawatts, the other one is 276 megawatts, and the last one is 680 megawatts. So there alone, you have Afam alone has 1,286 megawatt capacity. Afam alone. If someone can do what he has done in Aba with 45 megawatts, it means we can do the same thing in River State. If
even better.
And better, if the willpower of the governor and the proper cabinet, whatever, is there to make sure they want to drive this thing and make it become a reality.
I'm able to tell you that I think we have somebody described him as a calm governor, but with some sense of
gentle giant.
A gentle giant. Thank you very much. I like that phrase now. A gentle giant. And I think we have his ears right now. I want to think so, because I hear he loves listening to this station. So we have his ears right now. So he must be listening to what we're really saying. So please go ahead.
Okay, so let me speak to the governor.
Yes.
Your Excellency, sir. There's something called an eligible customer clause.
Right.
The eligible customer clause says if a consumer can consume more than 10 megawatts at a point in time, you can bypass the distribution company and go directly to the generation company to consume. That's one of the ways we can use if the state government wants to take power for itself and supply the people. The second option could be the system that was adopted in Aba.
Okay.
Because states now have the right and the privilege to generate, distribute, and transmit power as they please. What we can do is, we have private companies here. Maybe we can say Transamadi and Afam Power Plant, we want to dedicate most of their generation capacities to Rivers State. Let me even tell you something. Do you know that most of the times those power plants are not running 100%? Why? Because of the challenge of transmission not being able to collect all they generate.
Okay.
There's like a rationing going on among the generation companies. Okay, I'm shutting down now. You can switch on and send to the national grid. I will shut down 4 of my own plants. I will leave only this one on. That's what they are doing now, because nobody is going to pay them for generating what they are not transmitting. And that will be a loss. It's like having a 500 kVA generator in a 4-bedroom apartment.
You just want it's ridiculous.
You understand? So that means there's excess generation capacity that we can tap in Rivers State. Now, if we identify the power plants that we want to do that business with, we can use what the Aba model did. Let's go to those power plants. We get the state government to become shareholders within those plants. Set up and define the areas that we want to have 100% uninterrupted power. Profile the customers and use this, buy out transmission lines. Batinaji bought out the transmission company and buy out the distribution companies. He bought them out. He said this is between the generation and the people. Leave these distribution companies, because most of their facilities, transmission facilities as well, are not up to standard. So he put in the proper standard.
Like you said. I mean, those poles going down that deep.
You understand? So everything now is working perfectly there. And we have even better capacity to do it. And from what we've been saying about the internal revenue, generated revenue recently, we have the money to do it as well. So I think it is something that His Excellency can look into. We in Rivers State should be an envy of the nation when it comes to power. That's the truth. We actually have that capacity.
Well, you heard it all, Your Excellency, and Rivers people. At this point in time, I'll tell you that the phone lines are open. You can make your contributions, and the numbers again are 0818 144 2222, and the other line is 0907 060 7623. Know this one thing: I have a respectable personality in the studio with me, in the person of Dr. Kwagi, and he's been fielding questions on this very important topic. I believe that power generation could be another source of revenue for River State.
True.
What do you think?
True. And not just even a source of revenue. It could, if it is done by the River State government with the gentle giant we have as the governor.
Right.
If he is willing to enter into power,
which I believe he is,
River State people will have dividend for electricity payments. You know, we have lost trust as a people in many government activities or government facilities. But for his own style of governance, we have now started regaining
confidence,
that confidence and trust.
Exactly.
So if he's able to come in and push it the way you are saying, what we may even end up doing is, after profiling River State, we can sit down and say, outside River State, who needs power? And we start making some money from outsiders as well. We have the capacity.
We have the capacity, I believe you.
And we are even talking of now, I'm talking of just distribution.
Yeah.
We have gas, so we still have generation potential. So if we have a proper laid out energy policy in River State, it can attract most of our oil companies, especially here, to invest in power generation. If they invest in power generation, it is to the interest of the state primarily before the country.
Exactly.
And once they do that, jobs will be created. This energy transition thing we are talking about, the Nigerian method of energy transition is gas. You know, that because gas is one of the cleanest forms of energy, of non-renewable energy consumption. So gas, in my own village, if you dig 6 feet, you want to bury somebody, you will smell methane. We've not tapped into anything in our gas potential as a country, not to talk of as a state. We have gas in this state. So if we are able to define our energy policy, many people are looking of how to leave this oil thing and move into gas.
Yes.
We have CNG motors now, and the government has said that all government vehicles are going to be CNG.
Yeah.
If we put our policy in place and we invest in gas, attract rather investments in gas, this will be the hub. Rivers State, you can't ignore us. In Nigeria, you won't be able to ignore us. So there's something for the governor to really do.
All right. We'll take a break at this point. We've got some